Well, it's we're at 9 o'clock here, it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Let me share my screen. That looks good. And I'll be checking in during the presentation just to make sure we don't have any technical issues. Okay, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, evening. Thank you for sharing part of your Sunday with us here. So today we're going to be talking about Sun's movement into Cancer. I'm Ramdas, Bill Sinclair. I'm really happy to be with you today. I hope you're enjoying this series. I'm actually having a lot of fun doing it. It's interesting to take a topic like this and then keep addressing it month after month. So I hope you're finding it helpful. So let's hear all my social media contacts. I invite you to, check me out on those channels, see how it's going. And today I have kind of something I found on the ACVA website. There's an ACVA store. If you go to acvaonline.org and click on the store tab, there are hundreds of very interesting recordings available there, and it's like David Frawley, Dennis Harness, Camilla Sutton, Joni Patry. A lot of like the really top flight astrologers have given talks in the past, and most of them are available for about $9. So it's an amazing number of topics that are covered in that area. So if you're wanting to learn something, check it out. I would say put that on your list of places to go to see if there's not a recording, because that would be, it'd be really a great resource. I know I'm starting to tap into it for, putting together talks and just stuff I want to like get clarity on. So I just wanted to highlight that and let you know about it. We also invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we have a newsletter that if you go to ACVA Online, you can sign up under the Contact tab. And as always, any donations you make are tax deductible. So let's start with a little chanting to get started on this month. Take a moment, take a deep breath, get centered, feet flat on the ground. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshiyam Amritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityor mokshiyam amritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sagandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityor mokshiyam amritat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. So today we're going to talk about Sun's transit through Cancer, but then we'll talk about kind of the key transits. And I've started adding last month a kind of a dates to watch out for, or dates to be aware of, when things are going to be changing in the next month, and sign by sign at the end. And then as always, we have time for questions. And like I wanted to also let you know, I'll be checking in at the breaks between sections. So the first thing I want to point out is that when Sun goes into Cancer, it is called the Karka Sankranti. Now we have the Sun in Capricorn is the Makar Sankranti, which is widely celebrated. But this is the other half of the year. So when the Sun enters Cancer, it's marked as the Karka Sankranti, the beginning of Dakshinayana section of the year. And Dakshinayana means the Sun's progress south of the equator. So it's southward wise. So basically the year itself, the solar year, is divided into two 6-month segments. And it's really from Sun's entrance into Capricorn through the end of Gemini is called the Uttarayana section. And this is where we're more outwardly oriented This is also called the Day of the Gods, when they're awake. And so this is a time where we can work on gaining illumination. Once the sun goes into Cancer, all the way up until the end of Sagittarius, this is called the Dakshinayana section. And this is called the Night of the Gods, when the gods are asleep. And so this is a more internal time. And this is the time, because it's night. This is when, you know, they say no good things happen after dark. I don't know if you grew up with that phrase, but I did in Texas. And so it's like a time to seek internal purification is like the work that is supposed to be done today. So historically, the change of the into Dakshinayana would have coincided with the summer solstice. This is when the sun begins to reach its maximum latitude and is starting to head southward. However, due to the Ayanamsha things, the precession of the equinoxes, these events no longer coincide, and they're, you know, about a month apart now for both of them. Karka Sankranti marks the end of the solar month, which contains the summer solstice, is how it's being explained today. It is also when we're going to experience shorter days and longer nights in the northern hemisphere. Now that is switched for those of you in the southern hemisphere. But as you know, India is in the northern hemisphere, and so this is what the ancients, this is their perspective that they were experiencing. So, and as I said before, Dakshinayana marks one night of the Devas when they're asleep. So this is kind of how we link into these huge cycles of time that have been developed in Jyotish astrology. So 6 months for us, well, 12 months for us is 1 day for the gods. So this is something to think about. So we've just had the 1 day from January around 15th to now, and then we'll have 1 night from now until January 15th, like 2021. And so this is when lust and greed arise. So we must use these 6 months for internal purification and not get trapped in it. Now, as you live through this, especially now that I live in Seattle, which is a little further north, you really do, when it starts getting dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it can really affect your mood. So it's kind of interesting to watch, and I think all of us look forward to when the longer days that we have during the summer. So this is, I like to point out, so because this is the beginning of the Sankranti, the chart for the entrance will kind of give us some clues into the entire 6-month period, and we'll start to look at that. So the sun will enter Cancer on July 16th, and he will be there through August 16th. Now, this is based on sunrise in Seattle. So depending on where you are, you may want to refine that. It may go back to the 15th. So here's the chart for his entrance into Cancer. And immediately what strikes me first thing is that the sun is alone in the sign. And this is how the sun tends to like it. He's best when he is alone and he has room to shine and he's not overpowering anyone. So, and he's in the sign of Cancer, which is a friend sign to him. So that allows him to bring forth some of his best qualities. And the moon is exalted when he moves in the sign of Taurus. They're in the 11th house with Venus, who rules Taurus. So because it's 11th from the sun, I think in this next 6 months, we may have some financial, the economy may improve because moon is there. And the stock market especially, it's interesting because it's all based on like perception. And so I heard on the other day that the economy doesn't drive the stock market. They say it's actually reversed. The stock market drives the economy. So I would say if we look at this, the moon being the public, it's in, you know, in its exalted position. So you could say that it's going to help. People are going to remain optimistic about recovery and everything else. So that's, you know, my guess just looking at this one factor. Now, you can see that it is a darker moon, so that may not come without some consequences because it's approaching the sun. We also have a direct aspect on the sun from the planet Saturn, who's retrograde in Capricorn. And if you look, he's in his own sign. Jupiter is also in his own sign. Venus is own sign, and Mercury is own sign. So this is a lot of strong planets. And so when you have that, and of course, I said the moon is exalted. So when you have that, I'm starting to think that this is a signature for the year. And to be really honest, as I look forward, I thought, oh, everyone's in their good sign. They're going to be giving their kind of best results. And I don't think that's really panned out for our experience in this year. But I think it's almost more like when you have a room full of very opinionated people, each of them are giving their opinion quite strongly. So it's good because you kind of know where they're all going, but it hasn't really led to great outcomes. So that's another thing that's going on. It's also interesting to look here that we have Jupiter and Mercury with the nodes both in their own signs, and they will have a direct aspect on each other, which we'll talk about later in the month. And then finally, we have Mars located in the 5th house, which is aspecting Mercury and Rahu. So that's another thing that could bring kind of difficult speech, sharp speech, damaging speech, things like that. It could have a very mercurial, a very Martian type tone, which would be, we're hearing a lot of the war on the virus, where, here in the US, everything, we elect all our leaders on Tuesday, which is ruled by Mars. So if there's an issue that arises, we're going to go to war with it, which tends to be our collective consciousness here. So with that impacting Rahu, who's also pretty inflammatory, and Mercury, that will be a theme we'll see probably over the next 6 months. So I just want to see here, these are some of the notes I made. Sun is in a friend sign, which will yield good results, especially in finances. Sun rules the 2nd house. Yes, this is something I didn't say. Sun rules the 2nd house for Cancer rising, which is a Marika house. And this indicates inclinations for endings and also for transformations. Unfortunately, in this situation, Marika actually means death. And so I unfortunately think we'll continue globally to see losses from the COVID-19 virus through the end of the year. But it can also hopefully give us those ideas. Leo is the sign of leadership in the 2nd house. So it could mean change in the perspective of the leaders we have, or change in leaders over the next 6 months. And hopefully we will make transformation to better understanding and managing the pandemic. The Lagna Lord Moon is exalted on the day of Sankranti in the 11th house, and this is what it says. It can indicate positive material outcomes and improved economies. Now, we must remember that this is global. The transit is global, and so around the world, more economies may begin to recover, and this will help to stabilize the global markets. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was I'm starting to include the Aruda of the sun in Pisces, because what the Aruda does is give us our perception of how things are likely going to turn out. So this month it's in Pisces. And for those of you that aren't familiar with this, I just want to go over the how we calculate that. So what you do is, to find the Aruda of anything, you start with the planet that you're going to study. You can do it for signs as well. So the sun is ruled by Mars, sun is in Cancer, and it's ruled by the moon. So you count from the sun, the object you're considering, to where the Lord is placed. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the Lord has moved 11 places. And then from where the Lord is seated, you count 11 signs again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this means the sun is going to be concerned or presenting with the issues of Pisces. And so this is another friend's house in Jupiter. This is, really it talks about Pisces is very deep, it's always moving, but it's really the sign of ultimate change, and that it can indicate moksha, which is enlightenment. Now, this enlightenment can be, on many different levels. It means that we could gain knowledge, understanding about how to manage the virus. Realistically, the Pisces is also about endings because it's the last sign of the zodiac. So this talks about the incredible change I think we're in as a society. I don't think any of us think we're going to be able to go back to last November, and things are going to resume. So we're seeing changes in working at home. There's changes in environmental awareness. I think there's going to be massive changes in healthcare and different things like that. So I think this is indicating that it will continue to progress. But in Pisces, it gives me an optimistic sense that it will be moving in the best direction for all people, because Pisces is beyond like our individual wants and needs. It's really about more of a global perspective. So, and then we talked about the aspects to Saturn is the seventh aspect. Saturn is looking at him. And then by Rashi Drishti, we also have Moon and Venus aspecting the Sun. And if people aren't familiar with that, I like to just go over that really quickly also. Basically, what it says is that all cardinal signs aspect all fixed signs. So this, we have a cardinal movable sign, and so it doesn't aspect the one next to it, but the Sun would also be aspecting the 5th house, the 8th house, and the 11th house. So you can see that from here, fixed signs also aspect cardinals. So these are also aspecting it. And so this gives, I think, a beneficial and balancing input into Cancer. And then there's also a very benefic yoga we have for the Sun, which is when you have a benefic planet placed 12 from the Sun, it gives success, wealth, and good fortune. So these yogas, which I mean, a lot of us tend to overlook, they're usually taught very early in our studies, but it's been very interesting to see. So we do have actually Mercury right here with it. And so that will help, also build a more positive outlook, I think, than what we've experienced recently. So I feel in this next month specifically, and for the longer term, the 6th month of the Dakshinayana period, that the Sun's attributes are going to give us the ability to connect with the soul. It'll give a more generous disposition oriented really to helping others. It's building that community awareness, increased self-confidence, courage, charisma. I think that is going to be very important, as well as enhanced health and vitality. And then the ability to manifest authority, leadership qualities, and even what they call a royal disposition. So I think that this overall, I'm very optimistic for the coming month. So let's go down a little deeper and let's just talk about the 3 nakshatras or lunar signs that are in the sign of Cancer. And we start with Punarvasu, who only rules the first up to 3 degrees, 20 minutes of Cancer. Just one pada is there. And so this gives the power to gain wealth or substance. So I think this could, again, protect the economy in one way, but also substance, I think, is knowledge. It's about understanding and increasing, shifting our worldview to understand where we are now. Now, the myth that is associated with this nakshatra is where Rama wins Sita's hand at her engagement event. So Sita said, if you want to marry me, you have to be able to string this Shiva's bow, which is very powerful. And so Rama was able to do this. And so this indicates that in Punarvasu, we can gain a lot of strength, and it's a movable sign. So it's also, the nakshatra has a movable quality, which means new beginnings and new initiatives. So you have the strength to carry out new beginnings. And this is going to be active up from July 7th, which we're already in, until July 19th. The next mood that the sun will kind of go through, it relates to Pushya. And this is from 3 degrees 20 minutes to 16 degrees 40 minutes. And this is ruled by Saturn. And the Shakti is given is that it gives the power to create spiritual energy. So this is about beginning to go above our individual wants and needs and start to look more at the community. Now, this is actually very interesting because the Puranic history associated with Pushya tells us the story of the planet Saturn, who's known as Shani, his education. So just real quickly, the story here is that in heaven, Saturn went to Brihaspati, which is a form of Jupiter, and he said, I'd like to, go to your school. And Brihaspati said, well, I won't do it here in heaven, but incarnate, like go to my school on earth. And so Saturn did. He came down here and he enrolled in the Gurukul, or the school that Brihaspati is running here on earth. And so, but Brihaspati withheld knowledge from Saturn because he knew that he was the illegitimate son of the sun. And so after he, stayed there, at the end, Brihaspati did not give his final blessing on the education. And so this is a reason that there's, Shani is not, while he's neutral to Saturn as a friend, there is a history there. And then Saturn left the school very dejected that he had been not able to complete his education, and he met Shukracharya. Now, Shukracharya is a form of Venus. And so what he did is Saturn had told Shukracharya what had gone on, and Shukracharya agreed to teach him. So he taught him, and he gave him all the information. And so this is how Saturn, and one of the reasons Saturn and Venus are friends, but also it gives us insight into the two things. Jupiter is he's the advisor to the king. So he tends to be conservative and more, preserves the status quo, a little bit more about limiting the knowledge. Venus, however, is, we say, he teaches the Daityas, the demons, but actually he teaches like everyone. He is more egalitarian, and he shares the knowledge, and that coordinates with Saturn's outlook on the world. Saturn represents more the common people, like everyday working folk, and Saturn also treats everyone the same. So this is a very interesting thing, because if we look at the movement for equal justice around the globe, with Black Lives Matter, with the Me Too movement, with all these things that we're really looking at, why are we segmenting society in so many cases, and why is the experience of our daily life so different for people based on their ethnicity, the color they're in, their sexual orientation, all that kind of stuff, their gender, all of that. So I think we're going to continue to see that theme emerge, and this will be from June 20th through, sorry, that should be July 20th. That's a typo there, July 20th until early August. So this is going to be a very interesting time to watch, to see how we make progress in those areas. And then from August 3rd until August 16th, when he goes into Leo, the sun goes into Leo, we're in the sign of Ashlesha. And so Ashlesha is ruled by Mercury. And you'll see the gunas it's there. It's Rajas, which is the searching, and Sattvic. So it has two Sattvic layers. Now, Sattvic, I recently heard described, I think it's really beautiful, is we say it's the truth, Sat. But this really means that it's what always has been, always is, and always will be. So Sattva is that drive for the eternal, this consistent experience. And what they say is Ashlesha gives the power to inflict with poisonous venom. But if we look deeper, the Puranic history associated with this nakshatra it's about the Nagas. And these are beings that are very powerful spiritual beings that are half snake, and they're often represented as half human. And so they have both characteristics. But the idea was that there was a natural conflict always between human beings and snakes, because humans would step on snakes and they were always kind of battling. So they went to Brahma and talked about this whole thing. And, Brahma said, well, it's not fair to punish the snakes because they're just being who they are. They have venom within them, they're protecting themselves and all that. But to resolve the conflict, the snakes were given Patala Loka, which is the lower realms. So they're kind of separate the two of us, so that the snakes have their area and we have ours. The nakshatra is described as sharp, which they use the word tikshna. So it's stinging, it's sharp, it's biting. I believe that as the sun goes through this, it's a time for us to reflect on our own inner snake qualities. What are things about ourselves that we're having, difficulty accepting, or those things that we like to just kind of block out? Now, this really ties to, again, the social justice movement that's going on. We all need to become more aware of our internalized racism. We need to become aware of how we experience privilege also in the society, whether that's based on your race, whether it's based on your gender, whether it's based even on your educational level or your socioeconomic group. Those are all different places that we get privilege, which means that we just get always the benefit of the doubt. And so I think it's very important to look at those areas. And I believe this is how we can use that Ashleisha energy to look within ourselves at what are some of the lower qualities we have, and the sun will help bring them to light. And finally, I want to mention that August 15th through the 17th, the sun will be going through Gandanta. This is the change from any water sign into a fire sign. And it's only the last 48 minutes and the first 48 minutes of a sign. But what this means is it's a very difficult energy. Gandanta means a knot. So it's like things that just don't understand. So just be aware of those dates, because that would not be a time that you'd want to make a lot of big decisions. And if something comes up, a sudden conflict or something you don't understand, give it a couple days, because once you go through the Gandanta, you're able to understand it and process it more. Okay. So then we go into the padas, which is where the sun is going through each of the, where he'll be placed in the D9 chart, the Navamsha. And I'm really trying to clarify why I'm giving this also. And basically in the header, you'll see I give the date and then I give the pada, and this talks about what's likely to emerge. Because the D9 chart can be the results chart for any birth chart. And whereas the nakshatras here show what support the planet has. So basically, if you look at the nakshatra, you have what kind of support, is it a friend, an enemy, what's going on? Its placement in the chart shows how it's going to be going, does it have the strength to work with that support or not? And then you look at the Navamsha to say what kind of outcomes are going to come out. So we actually see starting July 16th through July 20th, it's the strongest time for this month for the chart, for the sun. He's in a Vargotama sign, so he's in the same sign in the Rashi and in the D9 chart. And he's also in Punarvasu, the friend sign. So this is going to be the best time. Conversely, the most challenging time for him is going to be July 27th through the 30th. This is when the outcomes are in his debilitated sign of Libra. And he's also in Pushya, which is ruled by Saturn, who is an enemy to the sun. So otherwise, you can see things are pretty neutral, and you can just look at this, but those are two things to just keep in mind. So I just want to check and see if there's any questions that have come up. Okay, it looks like we're good. I just want to make sure everyone can still hear me. Here we go. So, so let's look at what else is going on now that we've kind of analyzed the sun and what's happening there. let's see what's happening with the rest of the transits. And so here's this little graph that I do every month, and you can see some of the good things is that we have far fewer retrogrades here. At one time, at the end of June, we had 4 out of 5 planets that can retrograde were retrograde. Now we're down to the 2 long-term retrogrades, so that's great. You do see here on the 20th of July that the sun is changing on the new moon. So it's moving into Pushya on the new moon. So when things start to coincide, that's when I really pay close attention to those dates. So I've made out kind of a day planner idea for you. So these are things that you might want to jot down in your calendar or whatever. Just these are the major planetary moves for the month. So on July 16th, Mars enters Revati while he's in Pisces, which is an enemy nakshatra. And so this means Mars, I mean, tempers could flare a little more there. And then, sorry, please ignore the top of the slide. I forgot to change that. It should be 16th July to 16th August. Then we see here, this is what I'm looking for, is on July 20th, we have the new moon at 4 degrees of Cancer, and we have the sun entering Pushya, which is an enemy nakshatra. And at the same time, we have Sun and Saturn in opposition to each other at 4 degrees of Cancer. So the Saturn is looking at the sun as he changes into a Saturn nakshatra, and the moon is conjunct in the middle of that. So this is a day to just take it easy and just look at it and see what's going on. When your friends call you and say, I don't know what's going on, you can then, you look really smart because you go like, oh, there's 3 things happening in the sky, and you can tell them about it. On the July 24th, Venus enters Mrigashirsa, which is a neutral sign, but it means Venus is progressing in Taurus. On the 26th, again, we have a couple things, and this is where it's very interesting because Mercury enters Punarvasu and Jupiter enters Purva Ashada. They're both neutral, but don't forget, they're both placed with the nodes. So I think this is going to be an interesting day to watch. And then on the 30th, July and Mercury are in opposition at 26 degrees Gemini Sagittarius. So you can see that in these things, this would be interesting energy to start thinking about and watching. When we go into August, we get a couple of really, I think, good news. On August 1st, Venus enters Gemini after being in Taurus since March 26th. Whenever a planet stays in a sign this long, it just gets intense. This is why Saturn and Jupiter, which have these long transits in the signs and the nodes, make a really deep impact. So Venus has really been in there in Taurus, like really working on that sign that's retrograde for many months. Now, and this means that the Malavya Yoga for fixed signs is completed. And so that's a change in the chart. But in a way, maybe these Malavya and Hamsa yogas, all these things we've been having, are just amping up the volume on everything that's happening. So maybe we need to get these signs back at the planets into a more neutral position so we have time to kind of digest what's going on. And then the next day, August 2nd, Mercury enters Cancer after being in Gemini since May 25th. Again, he's been there 3 times longer than normal because of the retrograde cycle. And this will end the Padra Yoga for all of the dual signs. Now, it does come back in September, as I recall, when Mercury will go back into Rahu, will go back into Virgo. So that'll be the 2nd through the 22nd, roughly, of September. And then we'll look at August 3rd. So I mean, 1, 2, 3, August is going to start off with a little bit of a bang. Here we have the full moon and at Capricorn, 17 Capricorn, which is in Shravana. And then we have the sun entering Ashlesha on that same day, which is about the inner. It's interesting because Ashlesha is about looking at our dark side and the inner things. And Shravana is also about insight in that Shravana is said to hear what is left unsaid. So this is very interesting how these two are working together. On the same day, Mercury and Saturn are going to be in opposition at 3 degrees of Cancer Capricorn. And we also have Venus conjuncting Rahu at 2 degrees of Gemini. So this is something another day, like this will be very interesting energy to see what goes on around this time or what this starts. Then on August 8th, Venus goes back and enters Ardra. It goes forward, I should say, and enters Ardra, which is in a friendly nakshatra. Then we have Mercury going into Ashlesha, which is his own nakshatra. And then finally, we have the Gandanta that we already spoke with. So this is, I think, a kind of an interesting thing to start chatting about, with your friends and to start looking forward to what's going on. I'm going to be doing some YouTubes on my channel about these different conjunctions, and let's see what happens. So I just want to stress, we have a huge plus factor this month that we have fewer retrogrades. We're just down to the 2 really long-term retrogrades that are going on. I believe this has been a major factor to the chaotic kind of world we're in right now. And so I think getting the planets moving forward is going to help us start sorting out and planning our recovery. The other thing is that like I said earlier, the Panchmaha Purusha yogas, again, Venus and Mercury will end. And so we're left with Jupiter and Saturn. And this is just like, instead of having 4, let's say 4 really opinionated people in the room, we're down to just 2. So that's okay, easier to handle. So let me just check and see if there's any questions on that stuff. Let me see here. Questions, doesn't look like it. In the chat, let me check. Okay, good. So we'll just go ahead and go through the sign by sign. So if your moon or lagna are in Aries, then that will put the sun in the 4th house. And so I'm saying following a simple daily routine will restore a sense of satisfaction and contentment. Purify negative thoughts and embrace non-judgment. And I just want to refer you back. This is something to think about for, you could set a 6-month plan for these kind of ideas. So if you tend to have a friend of mine who I'm very close with, says that when she's in traffic and someone cuts her off, she automatically yells out in the car, And so that's a thing, those little daily things like that, if you try to do that, instead of yelling at them, just try to, think, oh, wow, something must be really going on. I mean, just changing those little things can help. If the moon or your lagna are in Taurus, the sun will be in your 3rd house. And this is where you can identify the people in your life who bring light and positive energy. The 3rd house is all about our friends, colleagues, co-borns, siblings, all that kind of stuff. So use this time to find the bright spots in your social circle. Gemini, if moon or lagna are in Gemini, then sun will be in the 2nd house. And this, it's good to, in the 2nd house, to purify your diet. By following a proper diet, you'll pay big dividends during this transit. So really, you can make simple changes to your eating habits can really help you to feel better. Also, purifying your speech by avoiding gossip, conspiracy theories especially. I think if I had my own, public health channel, I would say just avoid the conspiracy theories and your stress level is going to be cut in half. If your moon or lagna are in Cancer, the sun is then going to be in your 1st house. And so you'll have the opportunity to purify physical and emotional issues by really engaging compassion for yourself and for others. That's really the key for this. If your moon or lagna are in Leo, then the sun will be in your 12th house, which is his weakest house. So proper exercise and sleep will be key to maintaining peace of mind this month. Be sure to have proper relaxation and avoid too little or too much sleep. It's all about the balance. Think about the sun, he rises and sets and rises and sets, very rhythmic. So to stabilize the solar energy, you want to have a routine and stick to it. If your moon or lagna are in Virgo, then sun is in your 11th house. This will provide an opportunity to practice karma yoga. which means basically take your actions and release the results. And the 11th house is all about results, but you can't really get caught up in that. Just do what you know is right, and then the results, the sun will deliver the results that are appropriate and best for you. You may not get them now, you may get them in the next life, you may get them in 2 years. So don't worry about the timing of the results, just keep your actions focused on doing what's right. Libra, if your moon or lagna are in Libra, then sun will be in your 10th house. And this will encourage proper work-life balance. As the sun rises and sets in a regular pattern, so too must we have balance and predictability in our daily lives. And this is what we're missing. The predictability in our daily lives has been shattered since March. And I think bringing this to the front of your mind and reestablishing maybe not the new normal, but the current normal will help you to regain that sense of rhythm and control and help regulate everything. If your moon or lagna are in Scorpio, then the sun will be in your 9th house, and this supports esoteric studies. Concepts that have been unclear in the past may now really become clear with continued research and reflection. This is a great time to study something new, like start a study, like advance your studies in astrology is really great. You could go back to school, you could look at an advanced certification, something like that in more the occult area. So like maybe you wanted to learn numerology. This could be a good time to add that to your toolkit. So if your moon or lagna are in Sagittarius, the sun is in the 8th house and will present opportunities for you to overcome obstacles to your spiritual development. Meditation or quiet reflection will be key to this progress. So especially in the 8th house, which we need to go internally anyway, the sun is going to be there and it can help illuminate this interior world. Again, I always caution against overexposure to media and television. You know, David Frawley at the Vedic Knowledge Conference at Shivananda last weekend talked about how we're just being drawn constantly into the outer world all the time, pull, pull, pull. We're all addicted to our phones. We have all this kind of stuff going on. So the importance is to get balance by spending time with yourself alone and quiet. I mean, just take 15 minutes and sit and listen to the quiet. It's amazing. It will help you to really pull things together, and you'll be surprised what then rises in the mind. If your moon or lagna are in Capricorn, sun is in the 7th house and will provide opportunities to support your partner and maybe even their family. This can be material and or spiritual support. So it's important that we connect in with others and our partners, especially many people have been used to have a relationship where 40 hours a week they were away from their partners, and now they're all in the same house. So just pay attention to that. If your moon and lagna are in Aquarius, the sun is in the 6th house and will present past conflicts that are ready for resolution. If this arises, ensure that you keep your mind focused on the best outcome for all involved so that you don't incur negative karma. You can win the battle but lose the war. This is a very important message that I've been thinking about lately. You know, we always want to like win. I mean, you know, and I think part of the bigger lessons that's emerging is that no one person can win. The winning needs to be on a larger scale so that everyone wins, so that these issues are resolved for the good of the most people, because then we all improve. It's a very Aquarian view, but I think that's an important message that's going to be coming through. And finally, if moon or lagna are in Pisces, your sun is in the 5th house. So you can bring clarity to relations with your children and romantic partner. Proper exercise will bring clarity and insight as Piscean waters need to circulate. So especially now, we're all, you know, let's face it, you know, you're afraid to go to the grocery store, you can be like hesitant, rethinking everything, but you do need to circulate every day. And a lot of that is getting out into nature, wherever that is for you, and taking a walk and being in the fresh air. The prana is there, the prana is very strong. So take deep breaths and really let that help you cope with what's going on. So thank you very much for paying attention today and coming to the webinar. Again, I want to remind you to check out the ACVA store. Like, can you tell I'm like really excited that I found this? I'm very interested to hear a lot of these talks. I didn't really know. They're mostly audio recordings, but it's like a podcast. So it's a really great way to just, instead of watching 5 hours of news some night, download a podcast, one of these tapes, and just listen to it, and it'll really help. Thanks, everybody. I'm so glad you're attending. Let your friends know. I think we're really lucky that ACVA has allowed us to, put this out here for free so everyone can get a little sampling of what's happening. And I really love doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and close out. Thank you all for coming. I look forward to seeing you next month when Sun goes into Leo, his own sign. Okay, great, everybody. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Namaste.